In his speech in Las Vegas, former President Donald Trump delivered a comprehensive critique of the current administration, singling out President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris as grossly incompetent and asserting that they have been disastrous for the country. He began by questioning whether Americans are better off now compared to 4 years ago, suggesting that the country was far more stable, prosperous, and secure during his time in office. Trump highlighted various economic and geopolitical challenges that have emerged under the Biden administration, including rising inflation, energy costs, and a perceived loss of international standing, which he attributed to poor leadership and misguided policies. Trump placed significant emphasis on economic issues, particularly inflation, which he described as crippling for American families. He claimed that the policies of the current administration have led to soaring prices on essential goods, such as groceries, and have burdened the average family with significantly higher costs. He contrasted this situation with his presidency, during which he stated that the U.S. was energy independent and inflation was practically non-existent. He criticized Biden's push for electric vehicle mandates and other green energy initiatives, which he described as one of the biggest scams in American history, orchestrated by people who know little about environmental science, such as Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Trump vowed to end these mandates and immediately restore the country's energy independence through increased oil and gas drilling and the use of traditional energy sources. On foreign policy, Trump claimed that global stability had significantly deteriorated under Biden's leadership. He argued that Russia's invasion of Ukraine would never have occurred if he had been in office, insisting that adversaries like Vladimir Putin did not dare to challenge the United States during his presidency due to a strong and unpredictable stance. He also criticized the handling of the Afghanistan withdrawal, calling it a disastrous and humiliating exit that left behind American citizens and military equipment, while also ceding a strategically important airbase to China. He asserted that if he were re-elected, he would quickly negotiate an end to the war in Ukraine and prevent further escalation in the Middle East, which he claimed was now closer to nuclear conflict than ever before. Trump also focused heavily on immigration, describing the situation at the U.S.-Mexico border as an invasion. He accused the Biden administration of opening the borders to criminals, drug dealers, and gang members, including violent individuals from places like Venezuela. He claimed that the influx of illegal immigrants has resulted in higher crime rates and overwhelmed local communities, hospitals, and schools, straining public resources. Trump pledged to launch the largest deportation program in American history if re-elected, invoking laws like the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 to facilitate the removal of what he described as a criminal network operating within the country. He promised to end sanctuary cities, ban welfare and federal benefits for illegal immigrants, and fully restore the Remain in Mexico policy, which had previously required asylum seekers to wait outside the U.S. while their cases were processed. Throughout his speech, Trump also emphasized his America First economic agenda, which he claimed had brought back jobs, revitalized the manufacturing sector, and strengthened the auto industry during his first term. He promised to implement protective tariffs on foreign goods and to reward companies that manufacture products in the U.S. while penalizing those that relocate abroad. He lauded the use of tariffs as a powerful economic tool, asserting that they can be used to prevent wars and protect American interests. Trump pledged to offer the lowest taxes, energy costs, and regulatory burdens to companies that invest in American workers and production, aiming to bring back factories and industries that had moved overseas. Turning to domestic policy, Trump reiterated his commitment to cutting taxes, reducing regulations, and creating an environment conducive to economic growth. He criticized Biden and Harris for what he described as a war on tip workers and other service industry employees, accusing them of increasing taxes on tipped income. Trump vowed to eliminate taxes on overtime, tips, and Social Security benefits for seniors, arguing that his policies would significantly improve the quality of life for working-class Americans. He also promised to lower energy bills by 50% within a year by increasing domestic energy production, which he claimed would simultaneously reduce inflation and strengthen the economy. Trump further addressed cultural issues, condemning woke ideology and political correctness. He vowed to end the teaching of critical race theory in schools, ban transgender athletes from participating in women's sports, and defend religious liberty. He criticized military leadership for what he called the wokeification of the armed forces, asserting that it has weakened America's military strength. Trump expressed confidence in the resilience of the U.S. military, citing the rapid defeat of ISIS during his presidency as evidence of its capabilities when led by strong and effective leadership. In a direct appeal to voters, Trump framed the upcoming election as a critical opportunity to reverse what he described as the nation's decline under Democratic leadership. He warned that another term for Kamala Harris, whom he characterized as lacking the intelligence, compassion, and strength needed for the presidency, would lead to the further deterioration of the country. He portrayed her as a vessel for radical leftist ideologies and policies, including defunding the police and dismantling the Second Amendment. Trump urged his supporters to participate in early voting and to ensure a victory that would be too big to rig, calling for a landslide to send a clear message. In his concluding remarks, Trump promised a return to the principles that he said made America great, including patriotism, law and order, economic opportunity, and a strong military. He painted a picture of a future where the U.S. would once again be a powerful, wealthy, and respected nation, with a booming economy and a secure border. He promised to build a missile defense shield, revitalize American cities, and pass a law to criminalize the burning of the American flag. With references to his well-known slogan, he assured the crowd that with their support, they would make America great again, but even go beyond that to make America greater. The speech ended on a hopeful note, with Trump expressing confidence that the upcoming election would mark the beginning of a new era for the country, one that would restore the American dream and ensure a brighter future for generations to come. He left the stage to cheers and chants from the crowd, reinforcing his message of hope and renewal for the United States. Donald Trump's speech in Las Vegas was characteristic of his style, centered around key themes of criticizing the current administration and rallying his supporters. It was a fiery, populist address that sought to energize the crowd by painting a picture of a country in crisis, with himself as the only viable solution to restore America's greatness. Trump skillfully tapped into nationalist and patriotic sentiments, presenting himself as a champion of the people against a radical left establishment that, in his view, is leading the country towards decline. The main focus was on economic issues and national security. Trump emphasized that during his presidency, the country was stronger, more stable, and the economy was in better shape. His criticism of inflation and immigration policies resonated with many in the audience who are frustrated with rising costs and the surge in illegal immigration. However, some of his claims about the scale of these problems were exaggerated or controversial, and his proposed solutions, such as launching the largest deportation program in history, raised questions about feasibility and legality. On foreign policy and security, Trump used the speech to draw a sharp contrast between himself and Biden. He argued that the world was more stable during his time in office, claiming that Russia's invasion of Ukraine would never have happened had he been president, and that the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan was a humiliation for the U.S. His statements sought to portray him as a strong, decisive leader who could quickly resolve conflicts and restore America's standing on the global stage. The speech also reflected Trump's familiar stance against woke culture, with criticisms of political correctness and progressive policies, especially within the military. He framed cultural and social issues as existential threats to American values, vowing to end what he called wokeification and ban teachings like critical race theory in schools. Overall, the speech played heavily to Trump's base, reinforcing key talking points that have defined his political brand. It was effective in appealing to his supporters' sense of frustration and desire for change, while also reviving his Make America Great Again message with a promise of an even greater second term. However, the rhetoric often lacked specific policy details and leaned on emotional appeals and provocative language. It will likely resonate strongly with his loyal followers, but may not do much to win over undecided voters or those who are more moderate.